Welcome to Gnarly Metal After Hours. I'm Kelly Thomas, your host. This is a new show we're doing here on gnarly101.com. And it's a show that's a live show, and it's done Saturdays at 1 p.m. It features conversations with radio announcers, musicians, and fans about radio rock and records of the 80s. And this weekend, I have invited the owner, general manager, and program director. If you listen to my show, Gnarly Metal, I refer to him as PD Paul, program director Paul, to join me for this show today because I want to talk about Gnarly. And I want to hear how things came about. So, Paul, welcome. And thank you for taking time to be here today.
See, etiquette says I have to go, thank you for having me, Kelly. You ever notice how everybody does that? Thanks for having me. I'm going to just throw it out to Kelly and just reverse it here because I so appreciate Kelly, everything she does, and a little bit of history on that is that when we were an air station at 101.3, Kelly had found us and she had gotten out of radio, wanted to get back in and do something that was, that was less structured, I guess, if you will, because she had a life and a family. And so, the thing is that, and I'll tell you a little more about that, is that it was such a disaster running that on air, and it was just really, it was always something. COVID certainly didn't help any.
That was huge.
Yes, yeah. It was. Yeah. And so the reality is that she'd reached out to me numerous times, and I kept telling her, and I said, we just don't have anything happening right now. It's just really tough. We're just trying to stay afloat and everything. And, she kept with me all through that. And she saw that we had started it back up as an online station, reached out, and I was like, oh, my God, yes, let's do something. And she's done just a fantastic job, has great ideas, reaches out to community like with Gnarly After Hours and the folks over at Sunshine Studios and all of these different things, getting us set up online in different sources. And so, I just want to thank her for everything she does.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that immensely. And you're exactly right. I spent many years working radio industry. For people who are in Colorado Springs, you will have heard me on different radio stations in Colorado Springs. But my passion and my love has always been rock. I'll tell you the story behind it because I love to tell stories, but my husband had turned...
I tell stories too.
Do you?
Yeah, none of them are true.
Okay, well, this one's true. My husband had turned on the TV to check the weather forecast. He said, hey, honey, come here, check this out. And when I came into the living room to see what was on TV, you were on TV, Paul. And
you caught that on Fox 21?
Yeah. And you were talking about a new radio station, Gnarly 101.3, if I remember correctly. So a terrestrial radio station.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'll be damned. And exactly to your point, what had happened is I had just stepped away from the work world in general just to take time off to be an at-home mom, which it was a pleasure to do. But now as my daughters become older, I have the opportunity to do a little more than I did when she was younger. So it really was, a bit of a synchronistic moment for me because I got in touch with you and I remember that we talked and you had said, sure, come on board. But at the time, the timing was not right.
No.
And it was COVID. So just to bring listeners full circle, gnarly101.com was gnarly 101.3 on the FM dial, but it wasn't meant to be.
Well, we'll kind of fast forward to today and go backwards because I always loved that Seinfeld episode where they went backwards. It was entertaining. But, the fact is that if we look at things the way they are today, and Kelly and I were talking about that, and so kids, if you're looking to get into radio, find something else to do. We used to joke about this, people in radio back in the day when people would be like, I'd love to do that. How could I get into radio? And generally speaking, these are the people that said, all my friends would have told me that I'd be great on radio, and their voices are like this. Oh, my friends have told me I'd be great on radio. But I don't know. Everybody has a dream, and sometimes you've got to burst that bubble for the good of that person with that dream because it's not going to come through. It's very, very tough, and even back in the day, it was tough to get in. That's what we were talking about the best way that you could get in without having a resume and air checks and things is to be what we called interns. You saw them around your places. Take out the trash, huh? Give me some coffee.
Yeah. My first radio job out of college. So my degree is in radio and television management and production, and I worked at the college radio station while I was in college. And my first interview for a radio job out of college, they said, "Oh, we see that you have a bachelor's degree in radio, and that's great, but do you know how to run a board?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I've been doing it, for the past 4 years while I was in college."
Yeah.
But exactly to your point, to be in one place where you have the chance to learn what to do and learn the business of radio from the inside out, and then being in other radio stations and seeing interns come in was always curious to me, because some of the interns came in with a great deal of enthusiasm. They were open-minded and they were ready to learn. And some came in with the expectation that just because they were an intern, in a very short period of time, they were going to get offered a paid position.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen.
Right. It's not part of the industry. But, it's changed. It's most definitely shifted. I would say for people who are interested in doing radio, if that's what you want, work for it, but don't expect that it will be easy. Because I know when you and I started out, it wasn't easy. I jokingly say, in terms of sending out air check tapes and resumes, because at the time I was in, we were still sending out air check tapes. We hadn't evolved into the MP3 point. But I would send out an air check cassette tape with a resume. And I jokingly told my husband when we first met, I eat no for breakfast, because the number of rejections that you would receive from people, and it wasn't necessarily because I was bad and I sucked. It was just
you didn't have a name, you didn't have that following, and that's really what it is as far as like on air. Most stations, really, to be quite honest about it, most businesses, they look at you when you come to them and say, "Yes, I would like to work with you." They're looking at you saying, "What are you going to bring to me?" And so if you can't really convince them that you have something that they need, then it's going to be an uphill sell.
Yeah, and I think it's increasingly true today, especially in the world of social media, because I think that people who work in this industry have to be connected. You have to have a social media presence. You have to have a certain number of followers. There's an expectation, and if you don't, then there's the expectation that you're going to go to your Facebook friends list and contact everybody on your Facebook friends list and make sure that they come and listen to you. And I have not contacted everybody on my Facebook friends list, because my show, Gnarly Metal, which is hard rock and heavy metal hits of the 80s, isn't for everyone. So it doesn't make sense for me to tap all of my friends. I mean, I'm not going to say to my mom and dad, "You should listen to it."
Well, they'd love to hear it. Yeah, no, they'd love to hear you. I put at everyone when I do the posts. That way it goes to everyone on my list. Yeah. And, some will see it, some won't. But the fact remains is it's easy enough, to say, scroll on. Yeah. Rock on. Yeah. But, things have changed in the radio world now. And so what you're finding is that's why we made the shift from an on-air station to an online station. We were doing both. So we were streaming when we had a terrestrial signal. Now, I did some straw polls just out of curiosity, and I found that over 70% of our listeners were listening on mobile devices or at their computer at work or something like that, playing into the background. So when the tower got struck by lightning and it took everything out, owner didn't want to pay. It was going to be $100,000 to fix it and whatever. I had to walk away, and I had to think about it a little bit. But thank you to all those folks out there on social media that kept hitting me up going, "Man, we miss you. We miss you. Are you guys coming back? Are you guys coming back?" And it took me just a few months to go, you know what? This is crazy. Everybody was listening online anyway. So we shifted and we went to an online station. Now, bearing that in mind, in the UK right now, online platforms are above on-air platform. Yeah. So they have taken out the on-air stations in the UK. There's that old saying, as England does, the US follows. And yes, it is going that way. For better or worse, I can't tell you, it's just the way of the future. Everyone wants to have things at their fingertips. They don't want to be in a position where they lose a signal because of, the airwaves or something. Their station is down, whatever the case may be. People are comfortable with the technology now. That's the way that they want to go. And so we shifted over, and it's fairly seamless to do that. Now, we get a lot of people that want to do that themselves. And I belong to some groups of internet radio stations, broadcasters, and things like that. What you'll find is, and I'm not talking down to people, okay, so let me preface this right away. Yeah. It's just have realistic expectations. There's a lot of people that are kind of mean that say, forget it, you'll never make any money, don't do it and stuff. And so I look at it as they're just being a nasty person, or they're afraid that it's going to be more competition for them. I will stack us up against any station on air or online that is 80s format, and we will kill them. And there's reasons why. I'm not being arrogant about it. I know we've applied science and a little bit of gut intuition as far as for what we do. And I challenge you, listen to the music and listen to it for, even just 15, 20 minutes, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You won't find anything that compares with what we do, because we're thinking of you. What do you want to hear? What do you want to listen to? And so that's why we program the way we do. So if you're planning on doing something like that, do your homework. And it's funny that people will say, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and I just need a computer and a microphone. Now, okay, you can, but you're not going to give a quality product. So you really have to make that decision up front. Are you going to do this as something serious? Is this just a little hobby that you and your friends are going to have fun with? You have to make that choice up front. If you're going to do it as a hobby and just have some fun, hey, knock yourself out. Get a computer and a microphone, a USB microphone, and, laugh it up and, have a good time. If you're planning on doing something serious and being a radio station, it's going to cost you a lot. And you've got to invest in high quality equipment. You have to invest in the right software. You were here yesterday, another bill from ASCAP. You have to get your licensing, all of these different things that you have to do that cost money. And so what are you going to do? Okay, well, maybe you're independently wealthy. Okay, that's good. Great. But at the end of the day, people are advertising. Businesses want to advertise on online radio stations, but you have to have some numbers to back that up. And you have to have a professional sounding station. Otherwise, they're not going to come near you. Don't expect to get rich, but you can pay the bills.
Well, and I think there's so many things that you hit on that's important. And for people who are listening who think that this might be the avenue that they want to go down, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, having the ability to create something and create it consistently are two different things.
True.
And Paul told me yesterday the expression you used was ABC.
Yeah.
Always be closing. So Paul wears many hats here at our station, but one of the things that he does is he's a salesperson. And that's immensely important because people don't know you exist until you knock on their door or until you pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, we're here. Is this something you'd be interested in? Here's what we can offer you. And I think more than anything, from what I've gained in talking to you, Paul, the way that you sell is not to say it's a one-size-fits-all, but as an independent online radio station, you sell in a way that says to people, we will customize a plan for you to make sure this helps you get the benefits of advertising with us. And I know that some radio stations will do that, but I think if you're new to internet radio or radio in general, that might not be something on your list that you think to do.
It's true. One size does not fit all. Now, there are businesses out there that they are, and I'd be honest with them, I would tell them, I'm not a good fit for you. And there's a lot of different reasons why we would not be a good fit for them. But I'm not going to take their money and, blow smoke up their butts, and say, oh, yeah. So, I'm looking at businesses that we can help. And you have to do it different. And you were in radio long enough. I was at Clusters to see how they cookie cut these ad spots. I mean, at one station, a big cluster here in Colorado Springs that shall remain unnamed, they had one guy that was doing this. So, I mean, he's got salespeople on his back and PDs and GMs. And, he just was doing these ads the best he could, but he had to boilerplate things. And so that's why they all sound very similar. And if you want an ad that's white noise, then you've got too much money. So you need to have something unique. You need to put it together so that it has definitely a meaning for the person listening to it. And you need to have a hook on it. And it needs to be something different from the last ad and the next ad. Otherwise, you're just going to get lost. And that's what we do here. We do custom based on that business, based on their service, their product, and how we're going to represent that to the listener to get a response from them.
There is no shortage of internet radio stations
to
listen to.
There's thousands, tens of thousands.
But to have something that invites live jocks, because we have a radio station, we have a dedicated space. It's in an office building. It's not something.
It's not my mom's basement. Right. Yeah, could you imagine that? You get an advertiser, or you get a guest, right. And your folks were talking about that. Well, that's not in somebody's house, is it?
Right.
And you get too much of that. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, come over and do an interview, and the person's all excited, thinking, I'm going to go to the radio station and stuff, and then they pull up and they go, this can't be right. And, but you guys like some cookies and milk?
And I will not turn down cookies and milk.
No, but again, it goes back to that professionalism, and it depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to be professional, you have to be prepared. You have to have a dedicated space in an office or in some place that seen as a place of business, if you will. So you have to have that. And again, it goes back to it's going to cost money. But it depends on what you want to do. If you want to see if you can grow up doing it as a hobby, okay, that's fine. But generally speaking, you really need to have a plan. If you jump right in and say, this is what I'm going to do, I'm all in, then you're going to have a better chance of success and survival than if you're just playing with it as a hobby.
Well, and I think that's what has led to the success of Gnarly101.com is your ability to look ahead and say, this is the trend, this is the direction that things are moving in, and we can make it work with online radio.
Exactly.
Right. And so I just, my hat's off to you for having the foresight to look ahead and to create something that is wholly unique compared to some of the other internet radio stations that we listen to.
And I'm just going to take my hat off before we get the music to all of our great advertisers, all of the great people in the community that support us. You've been absolutely wonderful to us. We are so grateful that you said, you know what, I like what these folks are doing, and I think I'm going to give that a shot. We had 2 places this last week that were advertising with us that re-signed because they were happy with what was going on with their ads and how it was relating to their business. So Colorado Barbecue Outfitters at Heiser Hale said, yeah, sure, let's keep going. This is great. It's cost effective. It works. Let's do it. So thank you to all the community out there.
Right, and to all of our listeners. And thank you for taking a few moments today to listen to Gnarly Metal After Hours. More Gnarly Metal After Hours after, well, actually, who's up first? So we've got Journey. Paul and I put some music together with radio is the theme. So we'll have some music. And then on the flip side of the music, Paul, I want to talk to you a little bit more about programming here.
Sure, and we'll try to keep it a little more brief.
Yeah.
I just looked at the clock. I was like, dang.
Time went by quickly. Here's Journey on Gnarly101.com. All right, although I know you can't see it, Paul and I are rocking out in the studio here because...
Ear drumming it.
That's right.
Slapping that bass.
It's because it's Rush. Why not? So you're listening to Gnarly Metal After Hours. I'm Kelly Thomas, and with me, PD Paul, who is the owner, the general manager, and program director of Gnarly101.com and Gnarly Digital Media. Before the music break, we talked a little bit about the origins of this station. Now, I'd like to talk a bit about the programming, but before we get there, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Paul.
Spot away.
How did you come up with the name of Gnarly for the radio station's name?
It was interesting, just as background on this. I was at another cluster, and I did a talk show there. And so they were talking about changing their format to comedy. And I told them, I said, comedy? Most all of us there said, oh, no. And the fact is that comedy, it's a niche format. And at the end of the day, that's what I told these folks. I said, thing is that you're an on-air station. I like a little cursing with my comedy. You drop that F-bomb, at the right time. It makes it funny. I'm just saying. Okay, so they couldn't do that. And so anyway, be that as it may, one of them said, well, you're not telling me anything. If you guys got some better ideas, let me know. So I researched it, and I found the 80s were coming up, and I found that music preferences move in decades. And so I saw the 70s were dying down and the 80s were coming on board. And so now, back then, it was classic rock. Now they look at the 70s as oldies.
Yeah,
and
which
so
is crazy to me.
It is. The 50s and the 60s were oldies. In the 70s were classic rock, but now we've switched that because time marches on. So I told them about this, and I had all the information, and I gave it to them, and they said, blah, 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 blah. And I came up with this because I was scrolling through phrases of the 80s. And of course, we've got things like awesome and all of this other stuff. And I don't know what happened. All I could think of was Spicoli when he was there, at the morgue, when they were, he was like, are you in my class? I'm today. And when he pulled the guy's heart out or whatever, and he goes, oh, gnarly. And I saw that, and I thought, oh, my God, that's so funny. And I said, call the station Gnarly, blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't follow through with it. So when I got 101.3 air, then, of course, I went with what I knew was going to be popular with people and called it Gnarly. And so it's trademarked to us, and I own the rights to Gnarly and a lot of other different things. But that's how it came to be.
Yeah. For those of you who have seen our logo, gnarly101.com, the very best of the 80s.
And that's what we are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when we talk about programming, there's a couple of things, in my opinion, that makes this station unique and sets us apart from other online or internet radio stations. And the number one thing for me is that there is an opportunity for live jocks. People who you're listening to, your announcers. This show right now is live. It's not something that is
voice tracked. It's not AI.
Yeah, and given the nature of AI, synthetic voices, and the possibility that you may be hearing more synthetic voices in the future, having a chance to listen to a real live human voice, I think people connect a little bit more with the human voice.
I would tend to agree with you. At least I would think that way. Now, at the end of the day, again, technology marches on just like time marches on. The fact is, folks, if you don't follow this, and I don't expect you to, Kelly and I follow the industry just because we're in it.
Right.
And the fact is that you are finding it's harder and harder for radio stations to stay on air and to pay the bills. Most of the big clusters are hemorrhaging red ink like you wouldn't believe. Second quarter, iHeart lost over $900,000.
Which is...
yeah, and that was just a quarter.
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
So, that's scary. They lost almost $1 million in one quarter. So you could factor that over and say, okay, well, they're going to lose, over $4 to $5 million for this fiscal year, which is probably pretty close to being accurate. So when you're dealing with numbers like that, how can they stay afloat? They can't keep spending money that they don't have. Their stock goes down. Their investors give up. People pull out. We've watched a lot of people get laid off over the last 2 weeks from iHeart. A lot of people. And I feel bad for you folks because that is a tough thing. Where are you going to go? Ghostbusters. That's about it. Yeah. So the fact is that you're seeing this progression here where more and more stations are losing money and they're giving up. Now, the CEO of iHeart, getting back to the point, had been interviewed about AI. There is a business out there that will sell AI jocks. And it's very impressive. I'm not going to say I wasn't impressed, because I was. It's very impressive. You can choose, do I want a male? Do I want a female? Do I want it to have a particular accent? Do I want it to sound like it's from the South? Do I want it to sound like it's a person of color, or, Hispanic, or whatever the case may be? You can choose. You can build your own voice, your own person. And what it does is that it culls off of the software, so it knows what it played, what it's going to play next. It also pulls topics off of the internet, and it will come in and go, oh wow, man just bites dog in Pennsylvania and stuff. And so I don't like to be fooled like that, and I don't want a machine entertaining me, even though we did play video games in the 80s. I'm just saying, let's be true to it. And so we have real people here with real voices, and you can even take and go to the website, gnarly101.com, gnarly101.com, and go down to requests, and you can request a song, and you can even put a dedication into it, just like the old days. So if you're trying to make up with your girl guys, and you want that song, every rose has its thorns, so that you go, oh, I didn't know you were so sensitive, oh, I forgive you. You can do that, okay? And we'll throw it out there, and we'll help you out, okay? We'll help you patch things up. So we're always going to keep it real, and we're always going to keep it local and live.
And the other thing I'd like to mention real quickly when we're talking about programming is the playlists for the live shows that we do. It is easy to use software.
Sure.
And to have the software.
And that's what the corporates do.
Shuffle and program the music for each live show. But each of us who does a live show, we actually personally curate. We create the playlists for the show with the flexibility, like you said, of being able to make changes on the fly if we need to.
That was the old days. Remember, you had to get into the studio early. You picked your vinyl or your CDs or whatever the case may be, and you put it all together and stacked it up and stuff. Said, okay, I'm going to play this and I'm going to play that. And so you got that unique perspective from that one individual about what do they like, what do they want you to hear that they think that you're going to love, and those things with the computer, it doesn't have that emotion.
The importance for us here is not that we're doing this just because it brings us great joy. I mean, that's certainly a part of it. But more importantly, it's for the listeners.
Yeah.
It's for the people.
Without you, we're just, urinating in the wind.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But I had an experience working on air where I had put together a number of songs, and I got 2 phone calls from 2 different people telling me that I had played too many slow songs. It was bumming them out and bringing it down. Could I change and play some more upbeat songs? Yeah. And, initially...
The people have spoken.
Right, exactly. You can worry about your feelings being hurt, or you can listen to the people who are speaking and say, yeah, you're the ones listening. Of course, we're going to do what it is that you want to do. Now, that's not to say that we throw all of our programming common sense out the window, but we do try and be as accommodating as possible, because that's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
And we solicit your opinions, okay? Yep. That's important. You can go to social media. You can go follow us, send us a message at gnarly101.com. You can send us a message through the website anytime, or, like us and follow us on Facebook. You're there anyway. We're on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, YouTube. We've got all these different ways for you to contact us and tell us, what do you want to hear? Because we'll be more than happy to accommodate you to a degree. Right,
exactly. And we're being honest about it here. Yeah. Not that we don't love you, because we do, but I think one of the most important things is the fact that we're trying to create that sense of community. We're trying to take people back to the 80s, back to a time where things were perhaps a little simpler, a little less chaotic. And it's just to create something that helps us feel good, to create something that allows us to press the the pause button on the bullshit that life throws at us sometimes.
Especially now.
Right, exactly. So that's part of it. So I know that all of these things come together, Paul, and were all things that you conceived of when putting together gnarly101.com and Gnarly Digital Media. And my question to you as we get close to closing out this hour is, what do you see for this in the future? Where would you like this station to be, I don't know, in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? How would you like this station to evolve?
Gee, you should have posed that like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Oh. What's next for Jeff Spicoli? Well, heading off Australia for the Nationals, and me and Mick are winging it to London, jam with the Stones. You guys are invited too. I love that.
It's perfect, isn't
Jeff, Dad said you got to get up. You know what? It's a good question. And again, you and I laugh about this, but a lot of times it is the right thing to do, is to fly seat of the pants airlines, yes, because you need to be nimble in business. And there are those that'll tell you, you have a plan and you work your plan, and that's okay. But you have to be flexible enough where you can pivot when something changes, whether it's an opportunity or the market or whatever. So you always have to be aware of that type of thing. I'm happy with what we're doing right now, and it keeps building and building and building. What I would like to see is us getting to that point of the numbers where we start having the corporate advertising, nationwide advertising. That's where the money is at, and I'm not here just saying, hey, I'm just looking for money, I'm looking for money. The money allows us to expand and grow and add more people, add additional resources, and just keep building upon the business. So yes, that's where I see us being here in the future. I would like to see that probably within the next year, to be honest with you. We've just been just over a year here now, and I really see by the end of the next year that the numbers and everything will be in position so that we can go solicit that national advertising. And that comes down to a lot of, unfortunately, dealing with advertising agencies and things like that. And these are people that, they're very, I don't want to say they're heartless, but they're very numbers driven. And so they don't really care. I can tell them all day long, how great our station sounds, the quality of the playlists that we present and how people love it. They don't care. They want to see the numbers. And so when the numbers are there and there's tens of thousands of people listening, they're saying, okay, now I'm going to listen to you. And so that's where I see us going, and just adding more fun and more ways that people can interact with us.
And I think it's all very achievable, and your future goals are realistic. And thank you for having the business sense and, of course, the entertainment sense, because I think it's a rare package to have both.
Well, you have to have that to do what we do.
Right.
That goes back to what we were talking about in the very beginning, and we can close out like that. I'm not trying to talk down to people again, but, what we do really comes down to entertainment. A person either has that inside of them that they can bring out, or they don't. And I know a lot of great people where they wouldn't be good on air. So you really need to recognize that. You need to, listen to yourself, solicit opinions from others that know you before you want to jump in. Because if it's not going to be something that's fit, if you can't entertain those people, if you can't pull them into the picture that you are painting, to that vision in your mind that you want them to also share, then it's just not going to work.
Yeah. And fortunately, this has worked. And thank you for taking time today.
No, thank you for being here. I mean, man, Kelly is my go-to girl, and that's all there is to the story.
Well, thank you. You've been listening to Gnarly Metal After Hours.
She's my ride or die.
Well, thank you, and right back at you, Paul. I think it's a benefit for me personally, but also, as I've said before, it's a benefit for our listeners. They have a chance to experience something a little bit different. They have a chance to experience the very best of the 80s.
And we're always going to pull this through for you, Ben.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's why we want you to let us know, what do you want?
Right.
What is your idea for what you want to listen to? I listen to what we do, and what I want is to be back in the 80s, driving down the coast in San Diego, listening to my favorite radio station. They were playing the great tunes and introducing me to music that I hadn't heard yet so that I could run to the record store and buy it. That's where we're at. But if you've got a little bit of a different vision, hey, we're always open. Just reach out to us at gnarly101.com.
Yeah, and I appreciate you and I appreciate your time today. Paul Shideler, who is the General Manager, Owner, and Program Director of Gnarly101.com and Gnarly Digital Media. Thank you.
No worries. And now I'm going to Disneyland.
You're listening to Gnarly101.com.